150, 200 years old. It's not in the 16th century. It's certainly not in the Middle Ages, and I can't find it anywhere in the ancient church. So then I realized there was one more big issue I had to tackle: the Bible alone. That was almost the final straw. I'd always been taught, always assumed, any theological question I had to go to the Bible to answer it. The Bible was the final authority. All these other questions made me ask, is that true? Is that true? Sola Scriptura, what's the basis? So I went back to the sources. I started with Calvin and Luther. Went back and read them again, even though I knew them quite well at this point. What did they say about the Bible? And I realized that for all intents and purposes, the Reformers had no defense for Sola Scriptura. They merely asserted it. They had a few arguments here and there, but they basically were things like, well, we should listen to the voice of God and not men. I mean, truisms that don't amount to real argument, that prove nothing. Or Jesus condemned tradition when he assaulted the Pharisees and the rabbis. But no sustained argumentation in favor of, okay, we know from a divine authority that the Bible alone is the rule of faith. Nothing like that really in the Reformers. So I have to move on. So I move into 17th century Protestantism, the Protestant scholastic theologians. And I begin to find more argumentation about the Bible. And then, of course, today, in the 20th century, 21st century, you do find evangelical theologians who realize they finally have to tackle this subject and deal with how do we really know the Bible is the rule of faith. Very big, ironic discovery. They appeal to tradition. To justify the notion that the Bible is the sole rule of faith, they appeal to tradition. They find some church father who gets in a theological debate and appeals to Scripture. Or they look, even believe it or not, at the medieval theologians. Or they point to Luther and Calvin. Or they point to their own experience. But their main argument in favor of the Bible is an appeal to tradition. Now, some of them nuance it by saying, yes, but this is not Catholic tradition, we're talking about some other tradition, it's not the authority of the Pope, but at the end of the day, they're appealing to tradition. Some of them have actually recognized the inherent contradiction. And there's one Presbyterian theologian who has actually said, we don't have an infallible canon of Scripture. We have a fallible list of infallible books, right, which has always struck me, I'm sorry, is absurd. Yeah. All right. And I realize that if you stick with the notion of the Bible alone, there's no basis for it in history. Yeah. Now,
as a historian,